Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carl Oliveri. I'm the construction practice leader at Grassi, one of Moore's affiliate firms. The construction industry is a fast paced industry that is constantly in flux. And to be honest, that's one of the things I love about it. There's always a contractor coming out with a new and innovative way to build, a project that gets built that everyone said would never get done, not to mention the opportunity construction companies have to improve our communities. But with that does come compliance and regulation, and the construction industry has its share, such as safety and MWBE participation levels, work rules, and so on. A term we're hearing a lot of today, which is on the fringe of the compliance world for construction, is ESG. We are fortunate to have Jen Toronto from the Structure Tone organization with us today to spend a few minutes to discuss ESG. Jen, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a brief background on your current role at STO?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Jennifer Toranto. I'm the Vice President of Sustainability for the STO Building Group. For a long time in our organization, I was really dealing mostly with environmental compliance. But as you just mentioned, that has really kind of expanded into this world of ESG. And so I'm sitting in this role effectively, as I lovingly like to call it, playing traffic cop, trying to figure out who's responsible for what in the ESG spectrum.
Thank you. So, Jen, it just hit me. You and I keep talking about ESG, but our audience may not even know what this is. Could you let the group know what ESG stands for and how companies can leverage it?
Yeah, absolutely. So ESG is an acronym because that's what our industry needs, right? Is more acronyms.
Yeah, more
So, so it stands for environment, social, governance. And essentially, it's those three categories, if you call them, and it is the process by which you set and manage and report on those three core areas. ESG reporting is the data that and the data that's used to calculate it really allows for clients and investors and even potential employees a method of how they evaluate a company. The information can be used to assess a firm's risk exposures and maybe even its future financial performance, which is hopefully more positive if you have a higher ESG score, for example. And those ESG ratings are also used by companies to integrate it into their strategic planning, the reporting, the communications. And then, as I said, if you get those high ESG performance, you can leverage that as a way of tapping into new markets or new clients, lowering the cost of capital, lowering equity costs, and even lowering debt costs.
So it's really more about what is a company doing to improve their community and society and give back. And it's interesting that the workforce today looks at that as a potential selling point to go work for a company. So
Yeah,
keeping it
absolutely.
at the one-on-one level, and again, I myself need this baseline education. Who's involved in ESG policies? Who's involved in the reporting?
Pretty much everyone, which is why I just referred to myself as a traffic cop. Every function, yeah, every function of a company really can contribute to ESG. If you think about the environmental category, you'll be utilizing folks. We're a general contractor, so we utilize folks in our operations department, safety, risk, business development, marketing, just to name a few. And we have them addressing things like greenhouse gas emissions, green buildings, our LEED well, living building challenge buildings, the waste management, again, just to name a few in that category. For the social, you can engage HR, again, safety, procurement, IT, and many others in order to delve into things like employee health and safety, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and pay equity. And then we get to governance, and here, you're going to want to address ethics, risk, codes of compliance. And for that, you're going to need, a compliance department if you have one, a legal for sure, HR and finance. So I think I pretty much, like I said, I've listed almost everybody in the company at this point. And obviously you need buy-in from leadership in order to put out many of these policies at the end of the day. So it really is an all-in approach. It's a whole framework of thinking about everything your organization is doing through this lens of ESG, as you've mentioned. How does it impact the environment? How does it impact the communities? And are you being a good business partner all the way through?
So this isn't just for the Amazons of the world, but their
Yeah,
commercial
the
campaigns.
smallest companies can do this stuff. Absolutely.
Okay. So again, keeping with that line for a second, the smallest of companies can do ESG, embrace ESG concepts. This really does sound like something the construction industry should have been embracing for years. Why is it a priority now?
Well, I think you make a good point. I think many people in the construction industry, many companies in the construction industry have been doing several of these things. They've just been doing it in sort of a fragmented way and not capitalizing on synergies within the organization by getting these groups of people all together at the same table to discuss the policies, how they interact with each other, and how you might set KPIs and measure against ESG performance. To the why now, it's really about client demand. I think number one, we're an industry that I lovingly say is slow to change. But if a client asks us to do it, we will jump through hoops to get it done. And so clients need to meet their own ESG goals, right? So when you're putting yourself forward as a partner for them to work with, you want to be able to help them not just build the building, but also contribute toward those ESG goals. And buildings, real estate have a huge part to play in that. I had mentioned earlier about attraction and retention. This is another big thing. We all know that there's a war for talent out there. We want the best people to work for our companies. And so if you have a higher ESG score, if you're really ticking the boxes, contributing to your community, people want to work for a company that has purpose and that has a positive impact. And so those are really becoming more meaningful. And then that all leads to improved brand perception, right? So not only, is it, the companies that you work for, the people who work for you, the people who want to work for you, everybody starts to really get an improved brand perception around all of that. And then there's the regulatory piece, right? So we know, just as an example of one piece of regulation that's coming up, there's this proposed SEC ruling that people have been talking a lot about. And it is even for companies that are private companies that would normally say, well, we don't have to necessarily comply with this SEC regulation. But if you work for a company, if you have a client who is a public company, they need to disclose. And it's inclusive of their supply chain, which you just became part of, even as a private entity. So it's kind of coming at it from all sides. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing it rise to the surface so much now.
So what's interesting about all this is, to do business, the SEC ruling obviously is out there, and I think we all know if it hits the public world, it's only a matter before. It's not an if, it's a when with the private side, as you alluded to, and this could be again the new cost of doing business. Grassi, we did our 2022 industry survey report, and when we asked the respondents about the tracking and the implementation of ESG, 75% came back and said that they did nothing with ESG. They had no protocols or no plans in place. So again, for contractors that haven't addressed ESG yet, where should they even begin to start?
Yeah, so tracking and benchmarking. I think that, there's that tiresome old phrase, you can't manage what you don't measure. So that's what I'm going to tell you. You got to start measuring. And what should you benchmark, right? And that's the next question. I would say that the top three things that we are seeing rise to the surface over and over again, again, if I was going to pick one thing from the E category, I would say greenhouse gas emissions. Carbon emissions are by far one of the things that we see crop up most frequently on our RFPs from clients. Are you tracking? Are you measuring? Are you disclosing? So that would be a big one to tackle. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one that I would absolutely tackle from the S category. And this is twofold. This is not only how diverse are you as an organization, like the people who work for you, but also thinking about to the point that we've reiterated a couple of times here, how you're contributing to the community by using underutilized businesses, by having a greater spend for MBE, WBE, trades that are beneath you, or vendors that are supplying you with goods. And then the last one, I think, is really layering in some basic compliance, risk management, ethics, policies, codes of conduct. It is a great way to really start your ESG journey. And from there, you can just build on it.
Thank you for that. It really was really good information to start helping the industry get in the right direction there. Jen, informative conversation. Definitely left an impression on my side of the table. I'd like to thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it, and look forward to the ESG 102 conversation with you.
Great. Thank you, guys.